Source Advocate. Hope everything's going well for you guys this week. I am going to cover Airsonic. Before I get started, I want to say thanks to everyone who's supporting me by subscribing, everyone who's supporting me through Patreon and being patrons, and everyone who's supporting my efforts by going to my links for DigitalOcean, SSDNodes, and Hover. I really appreciate it. It makes a huge difference in what I'm trying to do, and it really keeps me motivated, so I really appreciate that. I appreciate all the great comments as well. So let's get into this Airsonic stuff. Airsonic is a media streaming server that you can run yourself. It's open source. It's self-hosted, of course. So I wanted to kind of go through how to get that set up today and show you all about it. First of all, here's the page. If you're interested, Airsonic has the About page. They have some really great documentation, and that's what I'll be using to get you set up with the Docker installation, which is a super smooth installation once you figure out not to be a knothead like me. This is actually my second time through recording this because I didn't pay attention to what I was doing the first time, so we're going to go through it again so it's really smooth. Now, if you want to contribute, you can contribute in multiple ways, and they have a whole page here about how you can contribute, so keep that in mind. They do have their GitHub link that'll take you over to the GitHub page, and then they have their demo site, but it's a little bit tricky. It's actually just going to give you screenshots of what Airsonic looks like. It is pretty cool looking and pretty nice, so be aware that it does have some nice features to it once you get everything set up, and it does look really nice, but it is just screenshots on their demo site from that part. Now they do have the new UI for Airsonic, and you can apparently get to a new UI demo. If you click this, it'll take you to a different page, but then it wants you to register and everything like that. I don't want to do that, but this is pretty cool looking. It looks like it's going to be a nice, very refreshed looking user interface, so that'll be great when it's ready. But today we're just going to do the normal Airsonic install, and I think that'll get us a long way. So I'm going to go over here to the documentation, and I've already come up to the documentation, but when you get there, you just go to install, and then down to Docker. If you want to do an install in a different way, they do have other options here on the left that you can go and click through and find the way that fits you best, but I love using Docker. It makes it really simple and straightforward to get things installed. And normally I do install things on DigitalOcean to do some testing with, or I'll install things on SSDNodes if I want to run it long term. But today, since this is a media streaming thing and I don't really want to put my media out on the internet, I'm just going to use my server that I run here at home, which is really just a Dell laptop. It's got a Core i5, 12 gigabytes of RAM, not megabytes, 12 gigabytes of RAM on it, and it just stays on all the time and it's connected. Now, the one good thing I love about that is if I have a power bump or if I have power outage, it's a laptop. It's got a battery. It'll run pretty well for, I don't know, probably a couple of hours at least, if not maybe 3, before it actually goes off as well. And when it does, it'll do a nice little shutdown. It won't just cut off. So I kind of like that. It's got kind of almost that UPS power supply type thing going, but it's just a laptop and it just runs my local stuff. It's not something where I've got tens of thousands or millions of people trying to hit it normally. So we're going to go through this Docker installation. They do have a prerequisite, which is you need to have Docker installed first. If you're not sure how to install Docker, the way I do it is I just come over to DigitalOcean and I just search this. Install Docker on Ubuntu 18.04. In my case, that's what I'm running. And I look at the DigitalOcean instructions, and really, you just go through here and you highlight and copy and paste in all of the things to get Docker installed. It'll get it installed for you. I would go exactly through these steps as well, so I'm not showing you anything that you can't come and just copy paste yourself. But I will put a link in the show notes and the description to this page as well so that you can get to it easily. Now, I've already got Docker installed, I've got Portainer installed, I've got NginX-Proxy-Manager installed on this server that we're going to be using, so I don't need to go through all that, which is probably good because that saves you a little bit of time watching this video. So if you need to install Docker on your VPS or whatever you're going to run this on, then stop here, just pause it, go look at those instructions on DigitalOcean. I've got the link in the description. And then get Docker installed, and then come back and pick it up right here, and we'll get started with the Airsonic install. So if we look at their instructions, they do give you a very simple, straightforward Docker run command here that will get it installed and set up and ready to go. And you can just use it like this. Now, the bad thing about this is you're not setting up any volumes, so you're not going to have retained data. So if you want to persist that data, so let's say that you do Docker stop Airsonic, and then you, for whatever reason, remove Airsonic or you update the image or something like that, when you run it like this, when you do that, you're going to lose all of that data that you set up. You're going to lose all your settings. You're going to lose the media that you've put in there is not going to be lost, but it's not going to be there anymore. So it's better to set something up with persisting data, and this is how Docker does that, is through volumes. So we want to use this kind of aspect here to actually set this up. So I've got this command already typed in, and I'll kind of show you a couple of changes that I've made to it as well. So we'll just go over to the terminal, and I will bring up that command here. Alright, so this looks like a really long, ugly, beefy command, but so we have docker run, and then our first volume, which is /home/Brian, that's my home directory. Now I'm going to create a folder called Airsonic. Inside of that folder, I'm going to create 4 more folders. There's one called data, there's one called music, there's one called playlists, and there's one called podcasts. So I'm going to create those things, and then we'll come back to this command, so be patient. I'm just going to Control-C out of that, and we'll do mkdir Airsonic. So this is the first one I want. I'm going to cd into that folder, so I'm going to change directory and get into this folder. And now I'm going to do mkdir, and I think you can do something like this in Linux, but I'm just going to make them one at a time. So if you know how to make multiple folders at once, go for it. You know, live your life, right? Just have at it. But I'm going to do this one at a time for you guys. So first we're going to do data, and then we're going to do music, and then we're going to do playlists, and finally we're going to do podcasts. So now everything should be set up. If I do ls, I can see all 4 of my folders in there. They're all spelled correctly, and I can go back up to my command. So I'm just going to clear this out so it's easy for you guys to see. And I'll actually go cd just so we don't have an extra step there. And we'll come back to our command. So now we've got our volume set up. So we want /home/Brian. Now for you, wherever you have this folder set up, make sure you put in the full path. It may not be /home/your name. It may be somewhere else. But wherever you put it, so I've got /home/Brian Airsonic/data. And that maps to, so that's :/Airsonic/data. So this is what's inside of the actual, this is the part that's inside the actual Docker container. So again, we're going to set up another volume now. That's home Brian Airsonic music, and that's going to map to /Airsonic/music. We're going to do the same thing for /home/Brian/Airsonic/playlists, and that's going to be Airsonic playlists. And then the last one is /home/Brian/Airsonic/podcasts, and that's going to be to Airsonic/podcasts. Now we're going to set up this port. This is the port they suggest. You can change this side of this. If you have another port that you want to use that's not already in use, feel free to change this to whatever port you want. I'm going to leave it. It's fine. I don't use this port yet, so it's good. But on this side, make sure you leave it the same, because this is where the container is expecting it to be running. This is the port it's expecting it to be running on. This is -D, so run this as a daemon, which means when I run the command, keep this thing running in the background. Then we're going to put this one, -- restart equals unless stopped. This just tells it, unless I stop the container and do something, if the container crashes, just restart it for me. Get it going again. Then we're going to say, and I'm going to expand this out a little bit to make it a little more readable, --name equals Airsonic. So we want to say, whenever this thing's running in Docker, I want to be able to find it by this name, which is Airsonic. And then this is the image I want to pull, which is Airsonic/Airsonic. So that's everything in the Docker command. And I will put the Docker command in the show notes so that you guys can copy and paste, and then you'll just have to kind of change this first part here where it says /home/Brian. So unless your name is Brian and you spell it like me and you have your computer set up so that's your home directory, this ain't going to work for you, okay? But otherwise, have at it. So we're just going to hit enter. This is going to go out and pull down the Airsonic stuff. It's going to pull down the latest version of Airsonic. And it does take a second because I'm on my home network and it's not quite as fast as like when I do it from DigitalOcean for certain. It's not as fast as from SSDNodes either, so it's going to take just a minute. So I'll fast forward to the end where it gets finished and we'll continue. Alright, so it finished pulling down, and I've given it a couple of minutes, so you do need to give it just a minute after it gets pulled down to make sure that it's up and running. So first thing I'm going to do is just check it by IP address. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to go to my server IP, and the port was 4040. Okay, great, it came up. Now you see it has my old information where I ran this before, but down here it gives you this message, so you need to pay attention. If you see this, you need to just first log in with admin. When you come in, it's going to give you some messages right off the bat. So first one is change your administrator password. So click on that link. And then if you come down here, you'll see this checkbox that says change password, and you can type in a new strong password. Once you do that, click on save, and it'll tell you whether it's saved or not. And it did. Now we can log out, and we will log back in with our administrator's new password. All right. Now it says set up some media folders. So I've already set up the media folders when I did the Docker install, so I don't need to actually go set up any other ones. But what I do need to do is I need to copy some media into that folder. So I'm going to copy from /music, or actually ./music, Apache, and then I'm going to say all MP3s to ./Airsonic music. So now I should have some music in my folder, and I ought to be able to go to my home directory. I'm going to tell this not to show me again. Great, now I'm going to refresh, and hopefully it'll go out there and actually scan that folder that should be set up now. There we go. Now I've got media coming in. This is what I want. So let's go back through some settings here. So when we start out, you get your media folder settings. You've got general settings as well. So as you click on these links, it does take just a second for it to load those things up. But here you can see all of the different types of media that you can find and play. So you can copy in these different types of media extensions. You have music, video, and then you can do cover art files. And then you can also import playlists, so if you have something set up as playlists, and then so it's got a lot of settings here just for kind of the general stuff. You can go into advanced. There are a few things here that you may want to change, but I'm just going to leave it in the default for now. So I want to come over to users. So here you can see all of the different things that you would have access to. So as an admin, you have everything, but you click on new user, and this is going to let you give that user rights. So if you want to make them an administrative user, you can check that box, but if not, I just suggest checking most of these other ones here. And then music, you want to give them access to the music folder. And then you want to give them a username and an email, and give them a strong password, and then save. Again, it'll let you know that it's saved, and you can log out and then log back in with that new user. And you see I still have access to the media, to the music folder, because I gave my user access to that when I logged in, but I'm not logged in anymore as a full admin. So we start looking at like podcasts. So here you need the podcast URL, so you need the feed URL for that podcast, and then you can start adding podcasts. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a search, which is a little bit of a disappointment to me. I was hoping it would have that, but you know, considering the way that I go get podcasts anyways, this isn't hard for me to do. You just want to look for their feed URL, for their RSS feed, basically, and just paste that in there and click OK, and it'll add that podcast for you. Now, there are settings for podcasts as well. I mean, there's settings for all kinds of things. So as we go back in here and start looking, I don't have access to as many settings because I'm not logged in as an administrator, but you can look at all of these settings that you do have access to as a user, and you can set those up for yourself. So you can say, do you want to use the web player? Do you want to use an external player with playlists, jukebox, or Java jukebox? So jukebox mode means that it's going to play through this device, this machine. So they can probably start it from anywhere, but it's always going to play out of the speakers on the machine that it's running on. Shared media, so you can share different media that you might add or have access to. I don't have anything here so far, so nothing for me to change really there. And then you have personal stuff here that you can go through for browsing. You can set an icon, things like that. The one thing I noticed is there's no save button, and I noticed this when I did this before. And when I changed off the screen, I lost what I changed, so I'm not really sure if that's actually saving anything or not. You can update your password here, and then we've already been through those. So now I'm going to log out, and I'm going to log back in as an admin, just so you can see the other settings. So you see there's quite a few more settings here whenever we stop and actually log back in as a different user. So if we go to podcast, for instance, so you can say I want to download every day, I want to keep the last, and I have a lot of space, so I'll say 30 episodes. If you're using a Raspberry Pi with a small card, you might only want the last 10 episodes, depending on how many podcasts you're going to get and listen to. And then download the most recent one, and then of course you can say keep it in Airsonic Podcasts and save your changes. You can also set up streaming internet and TV radio stations, or internet TV and radio stations. So if you have any non-encrypted streaming stations, you can set those up. You can set up transcoding if you need to set up transcoding for your media files as well. A little bit more of an advanced topic on this one, so I'm not really going to go through this, but if you know what you're doing with FFmpeg and how to transcode things, you can set that up. If you have Sonos, which I don't, you can enable the Sonos music server as well. I don't have it, so that's not something I would turn on. DLNA and UPnP, so Universal Plug and Play, and then DLNA. You can set that up if you need to for your different players. Again, not something I need to set up myself. And then up here you've got, again, we've gone through advanced, media folders, personal. It's just the same thing as you get on your other user, and then users, of course, which you can control the different users' access to things. There's a database option here. It's just set to legacy by default. I don't really mess with it. I didn't mess with it or change it, so I've just kind of left that as it is, and I'm using the volumes to kind of keep track of everything for me. So if I go back to home and I say, let's just play a file here, I'm just going to play a few seconds of it. You can hear that it's going to play. And that's it. Don't want to get taken off YouTube just because I'm playing copyrighted content, but you can hear that it does play, and you can see once I've done that, then I come down here and I've got access to all of the music that I've just imported. So it's pretty quick to import all that stuff, and you can give it star ratings, and you can just do all kinds of things here in the grid, which is pretty nice. You can see recently added, which is the same list, and then starred, which I don't have anything starred, but it's going to show up. So if you start starring things, it'll start bringing those to the top. Top rated, most played, recently played, by decade, by genre, and then you can of course see all. So you have a lot of different options here. I don't know that it's going to really get anything. I think this is the area where it would show you like album art. I don't really have any album art, so nothing for it to show in that space. This message you can also change in your settings. So if you don't like the message that it has here, you can change this message. So if you have other people that are going to access the system, you can change this welcome message, and you can change the welcome title, and I think a couple of other things about it as well. This is your now playing, so you can kind of see what's going on. Now you can click for lyrics, but in this case I don't think it's able to find the lyrics for me. So yeah, there we go. So it's trying, but it can't find lyrics for that particular song and band, just maybe the way I have it titled. Maybe there's no lyrics out there for it. So that is Airsonic. It does have some stats, so as you add users, you can see different information and statistics about which users have done what. So you can see here as an admin, I've played a song and how much it took. And then, as your users log in and start doing things, you'll start getting more stats that it can build, which is kind of a cool feature, not a bad feature at all. There is a more. So you can actually go through here and actually set up more settings as well. And I'm sorry if there's noise in the background. I have some people doing some construction, but we're almost finished. So you do have Airsonic apps, you have network status, so you have quite a bit of stuff here that you can set up as well. So here you can say, there's Airsonic apps out there that you can get. So we can click on this link and just open it in a new tab out here. So there's apps for your phone from Google Play. So F-Droid, Google Play, Windows Store, BlackBerry. There's the App Store for iOS, so there's a few apps out there that you can also get for those. And I think there's several others. I think if it supports the subsonic, basically if it supports subsonic server, then and the API, then you can use those apps. So now we're just hitting this from the IP address. I want to make this work with an actual URL. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to say I want this to go to airsonic.routemehome.org, and I'm going to tab to make sure it grabs it, and then I'm going to put in the and what I want in this case is the local address from Docker. So I'm going to say ifconfig, and we'll just look for it. We'll just scroll up. So there's a bunch of virtual Ethernet cards, but there is a Docker 0. So I'm going to grab this address, which is kind of like the localhost for Docker. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to paste that into this. And then I know this is running on 4040. And I'm going to tell it WebSocket support in this case. I don't know if it's necessary, but I'm going to tell it to go ahead and support that. So I've got my URL, my IP address for my Docker host, and my port. I'm going to hit save. And then I'm just going to click it to make sure that it opens up at that URL, which it does. There we go. So I could log in right there and do that. Awesome. So I'm going to close this one too. And we're going to go set this up now. So we've got HTTP, but I want HTTPS. So I'm going to say edit. And I'm going to go to this tab and I'm going to say add a location. I'm going to go to the tab that says custom locations. And I'm just going to type in the same URL. So airsonic.routemehome.org in my case. You'd of course want to use your own. Here under the schema, I'm going to use HTTPS. I'm going to use the same IP address and I'm going to use the same exact port in this case, 4040. Then I'm going to move to the SSL tab here and I'm going to say get a new one, force SSL, and I agree with my email address entered into the email space for Let's Encrypt. Now I'm going to say save. I'm going to let Let's Encrypt go through and make sure that it can hit the site from 80. That's why I set up that first tab and checked it to make sure I could get to it. And now if I click on this, it should take me, and it does, to an SSL encrypted site. And I've got my Airsonic set up, so I can say again, so I can log in as my user. Let me get the right password. There we go. When you have strong passwords, it's hard to remember. Now I can say remember me. This is my own machine at home, right? Log in. No, you don't need to remember it. And again, I can go down here and I can find a song that I can start, and it's the same song. There you go. Now I'm streaming over HTTPS. I've got it running over HTTPS. Everything is working, and I've really kind of set this thing up. So I'm quickly going to just click on a couple of other songs here, and again, hopefully not get myself taken off. There we go. Okay, and we'll go down here. One more. There we go. Great. And it says allow Airsonic notification. Sure, why not? So it sends you a little notification up here of what it's doing. That's cool. But what I want to do is go back to the stats now. So I've played more songs than the administrator. So you can just kind of see how the stats change as you go through. So there's a lot there. But there we go. We've set it up. Set it up on a server. We've got it running with Docker. Now, of course, we didn't just use this. I will put the Docker command that I used into the show notes and description. Once we did that, we got it up and running with NginX-Proxy-Manager and made sure that it worked just going in straight up through kind of a port 80, no specified port on the URL. And then we went over and set it up to be SSL and force SSL. So now when I go to this URL, it opens up in an SSL encrypted page, and I'm able to access my Airsonic server and my streaming server. I hope this was helpful. Hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, like, subscribe, tell your friends about it so they can come along on this journey with us, and I'll talk to you next time.